A couple of weeks ago, someone claiming to be my number one fan, at least that's the name they used, asked an interesting question. Quote, any chance you could make a YouTube video going through each major executive federal agency or department and discuss which is actually constitutional under Article 1, Section 8? Well, that's a good question. So there's not only a very good chance I'll write an article and create a video, but here it is, next on the Constitution Study.
Neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution. Teach a rising generation to be free. I tell people I love when they ask questions, and here we have my number one fan asking a question that I'm answering right here for you. Now, if you'd like to find out more, head to the website constitutionstudy.com. You can ask a question. There's a lot more. I'll talk a bit more about it at the end of the episode. But for now, let's answer my number one fan's question. The first thing I need to do to answer my number one fan's question is to modify their question just a little bit. See, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution lists the powers delegated to Congress, while the Cabinet serves to advise the President, in whom the executive powers are delegated in Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1. Now, Congress has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. So Congress has the power to make laws to execute the powers of the United States. So if we're going to look at the constitutionality of the different cabinet departments, we need to look at the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, currently, there are 15 different cabinet-level departments. There are 5 departments that we can easily identify the power delegated to the United States that they exercise: Department of State, of Treasury, Defense, Justice, and Commerce. That's not to say all these departments do is constitutional, but their core purpose is. The Department of State plays the lead role in developing and implementing the President's foreign policy. Major responsibilities include United States representation abroad, foreign assistance, foreign military training programs, countering international crime, and a wide assortment of services to U.S. citizens and foreign nationals seeking entrance to the United States. Since the President has the power, with the advice and consent of the Senate, to sign treaties with foreign nations, the Department of State has a constitutional role. The Department of the Treasury is responsible for promoting inclusive economic prosperity for all Americans. The department advances U.S. and global economic growth to raise American standard of living, support communities, promote racial justice, combat climate change, and foster financial stability. The department operates systems that are critical to the nation's financial infrastructure, such as the production of coin and currency, the disbursement of payments owed to the American public, the collection of necessary taxes, and the borrowing of funds required by congressional enactment to run the federal government. The Treasury Department also performs a critical role in enhancing national security by safeguarding our financial systems, implementing economic sanctions against foreign threats to the U.S., and identifying and targeting financial support networks that threaten our national security. The Treasury Department is one of those agencies that has a constitutional mandate, but has expanded its purpose into a blatantly unconstitutional role. The Treasury can collect taxes under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, borrow money on the credit of the United States, Clause 2, coin money, Clause 5, and to pay money appropriated by Congress, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7. The implementation of economic sanctions could be part of exercising Congress's power to regulate foreign commerce. But the whole advancing economic growth, promoting racial justice, and combating climate change are not powers delegated to the United States, which shows how a constitutionally sound department can quickly be used to enact unconstitutional powers. The mission of the Department of Defense is to provide the military forces needed to deter war and to protect the security of our country. The department's headquarters is at the Pentagon. Sounds constitutional, right? After all, Congress can raise an army and support a navy, But is that all the DoD does? The DoD consists of the departments of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, as well as many agencies, offices, and commands, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, the National Security Agency, and the Defense Intelligence Agency. The DoD occupies the vast majority of the Pentagon building in Arlington, Virginia. Army, Navy, and Air Force, no problem. NSA and DIA are another matter altogether. See, under the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Notice it doesn't say the right of the people to be secure unless government claims a national security issue. So the question is, are the NSA and DIA following the Constitution or not? Recent reporting would point to these agencies not following the Constitution. The mission of the Department of Justice is to enforce the law and defend the interests of the United States according to the law, to ensure public safety against threats, foreign and domestic, to provide federal leadership in preventing and controlling crime, to seek just punishment for those guilty of unlawful behavior, and to ensure fair and impartial administration of justice for all Americans. According to Article 2, Section 3, the President shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. So the duty to enforce the law is a constitutional power. If the purpose of the DOJ is the enforcement of the law as a constitutional power, though, ensuring the public safety is not. We have a military for the common defense, but the Constitution does not grant to the United States the power to ensure public safety. That is a state's power. While the federal government has the power to enforce federal law, there's the limit of their law enforcement powers. See, in other words, the DOJ can only enforce laws made pursuant to the Constitution. And since Congress only has exclusive legislative powers over the District of Columbia, forts, magazines, and other needful buildings, that means much of what the DOJ does is criminal, not justice. The Department of Commerce is a government agency tasked with creating the conditions for economic growth and opportunity. The department supports the U.S. business and industry through a number of services, including gathering economic and demographic data, issuing patents and trademarks, improving understanding of the environment and oceanic life, and ensuring the effective use of scientific and technical resources. The agency also formulates telecommunications and technology policy and promotes U.S. exports by assisting and enforcing international trade agreements. Congress can regulate both interstate and foreign commerce, but that is not what the department claims to do. It appears the Department of Commerce is more interested in regulating everything that passes through commerce rather than the constitutional power to regulate interstate and foreign commerce. Now, there are plenty of departments that are not exercising powers delegated to the United States, like the Departments of Agriculture, Labor, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, Energy, and Education. None of these departments are exercising powers delegated to the United States. That means that the legislation that created these departments was not made pursuant to the Constitution and therefore are not the supreme law of the land. From the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Clause 2, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Not only are the laws that created these departments not the supreme law of the land, but according to both Alexander Hamilton and the Supreme Court, they're void. From Federalist Paper 78, there is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. And from the Marbury versus Madison opinion, thus a particular phraseology of the Constitution of the United States confirms and strengthens the principle supposed to be essential to all written constitutions, that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts, as well as other departments, are bound by that instrument. Which means these departments do not legally exist. Now, there are some departments I consider questionable. They may be exercising powers delegated to the United States, but it's not exactly obvious. The Department of Veteran Affairs is responsible for administering benefit programs for veterans, their families, and their survivors. These benefits include pension, education, disability compensation, home loans, life insurance, vocational rehabilitation, survivor support, medical care, and burial benefits. Veterans Affairs became a cabinet-level department in 1989. We know that Congress can raise and support armies and a navy, but what about those who serve? Is a separate department rather than the DoD the best way to take care of those who defended this country? Well, that's a question for another venue. The Department of the Interior is the nation's principal conservation agency. Its mission is to protect America's natural resources, offer recreation opportunities, conduct scientific research, conserve and protect fish and wildlife, and honor the U.S. government's responsibilities to American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and to island communities. Again, conservation is not a power delegated to the United States. Oddly enough, Congress does have exclusive legislative authority over the District of Columbia, dockyards, forts, etc. If Congress wanted to have a department to manage that land, that's one thing. But the claim of power to take over land for the purpose of conservation is not within the powers delegated to the United States. So this one is going well beyond their legal authority. The Department of Homeland Security protects the American people from a wide range of foreign and domestic threats. DHS has a broad and diverse mission set, including to prevent and disrupt terrorist attacks, protect critical infrastructure and civilian computer networks, facilitate lawful trade and travel, respond to and recover from natural disasters, protect our borders, and regulate the migration of individuals to and from our country. Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes to provide for the common defense of the Union. But that does not include the wide range of foreign and domestic threats that the department claims is its purview. It certainly does not include protecting civilian computer networks or lawful trade. Now, while searching the White House website, I found a list of cabinet members that goes beyond the department secretaries. Surprise, surprise, many of them are unconstitutional as well. Well, for example, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, administrator of the Small Business Administration, and director of the Office of Science and Technology. Just as with the departments, there are several of these cabinet members that may be constitutional, but rarely seem to act within the limits of that document. The Director of National Intelligence, the United States Trade Representative, the United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. As we can see, a large percentage of the executive branch does not legally exist. As I pointed out earlier, an act of the legislature repugnant to the Constitution is void. Just think how many of your tax dollars are used to fund these illegal departments and agencies. Even worse, how much of your liberty is being trampled by the illegal regulations coming out of these illegal departments? Which brings up another topic I would like to add to this discussion: federal regulation. Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution reads, "All legislative power herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives." All of the United States legislative power is vested solely in Congress. Now, what is this legislative power? According to Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, legislative means capable of enacting law as legislative power. That means the only branch of the federal government legally capable of enacting law is Congress. When an executive branch, department, or agency writes regulations with the force of law, those acts are not made pursuant to the Constitution, so they are not the supreme law of the land and are void. Just imagine what life would be like without the millions of pages of federal regulation and thousands of federal employees being used to eat out our substance. I want to thank my number one fan for this question. I think it shows that there are still people out there who are concerned about what the Constitution says and about keeping the government it created within its legal bounds. Once again, I hope we see that the problems in Washington, D.C. are not simply the politicians or the bureaucrats, but the compliance of we the people with the illegal acts coming from that wretched hive of scum and villainy. So, number one fan, I hope that was what you were looking for. I hope that answered your questions. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some maybe not so good. The point is that we wanted to look at the constitutionality of the departments, of the powers they were exercising. And as I hope we saw that even the departments that legally exist, that have at their core a constitutional role, they go far beyond anything authorized by the Constitution. Only by returning the federal government to its rightful place as a servant of the states do we once again return to the land of the free and the home of the brave. But it's not going to happen because some donkey or some elephant gets elected president or goes to Congress or picks somebody to serve in the Supreme Court. It's only going to happen when we, the people, start enforcing the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. Yes, it is there. Remember, we, the people, the preamble starts and ends with, do ordain and establish this Constitution. We created this mess. We created Washington, D.C., we created Congress, we created the executive branch, we created the judiciary. We're going to have to take responsibility for it. So number one, fan, I hope that's what you wanted. I hope you found this helpful. If you have a question, if you have something you'd like me to go over, well, just go to the website, constitutionstudy.com. You can ask a question. I'll be more than happy to answer it right here on the website or on any of the social media platforms that I post to. If you'd like to follow more of the Constitution Study, well, sign up for one of the mailing lists. I've got my monthly newsletter, my weekly insider, and of course, you can always have these articles and videos emailed directly to you. Just sign up there on the website. And of course, if you can donate to the cause, if you can help pay for all the work that we do here, for all the software and the equipment that we need to make this happen, well, that would be a tremendous help as well. Anyway, all the answers are right there on the website, constitutionstudy.com. So I hope you'll come. I hope you bring your questions and maybe even a few friends next time to the Constitution Study.
Love the neighbors and have a few good friends.